But
I've got all these AI. I've
I
got two
know
different
you've
AI
got
apps here.
your Otter as one
Yeah,
of the
and then I've
uh,
got this other one called Fathom, which is really great.
Fathom. I haven't
Yeah. Oh
used.
my God. Yeah. This is the next level of taking
Uh-huh.
all
Yes.
the things that you can imagine. Actually, I can even record other people's stuff. They'd have to tell me that they didn't want me to record it. But this enables you to just to do
I just can't
everything.
take the time to go back over all those notes and recordings. I don't know how you do it. I just
Yeah.
go,
I stack
but
everything just so that
if
I
I
can make
really have to
sure.
look something up, then I'll dig through it. But
Okay.
it's too short.
It is way too short. So Anna Marie, my friend,
Sunny, hi, Sunny.
yes. Yes, so please introduce yourself.
Uh, so I'm Anna Marie Piersimone, and my background is in a combination of film and video art, film and video art administration organizations to survive. I started indie film and video organizations and then just kept moving along them. I started in Hartford, Connecticut, where I got my BFA. And then I moved on from there to Atlanta. I worked with a video music channel, same time as MTV was starting up. Came out here, worked with E Entertainment when it was first movie time, before it was E. And then I started actually here with some cable companies in the Pasadena, San Gabriel Valley area. And so, kicked around, worked for ABC Entertainment as well as E. And then one of my best jobs was working for PBS SoCal, which then was KCT Public Television. I did a lot of on-air promotions, so I made little short interstitial mini docs, that kind of thing, and then I did, basically what amounted to being trailers and promo pieces. And you learn a lot from doing that. You really get into the guts of a film or series if you have to promote it. And you have 10 seconds to do it in sometimes, 10 seconds or 2 minutes. So that's the legacy that I built, was being, good at that, being able to manage the creatives, the graphics, the video producers and editors. And, I moved in and out of management or production positions. And then eventually, and then I worked for AFI for about 10 years, starting up their new media program. So, and also their K through 12 screen education program. But I ran what was then unfortunately gone, the Digital Content Lab. Um, and yeah, I worked with Nick DiMartino. We started a division within AFI called New Media Ventures that doesn't exist anymore. They kind of went back to no, just filmmaking roots. So, and that was right when things were sort of crashing in the economy as well too. So a lot of industries had to kind of taper back a bit. So I did that. I freelanced. I worked for mostly entertainment companies, but also a solar power developer with building plants out in the desert in Palmdale and Lancaster, and then on rooftops. And I happened to live in a loft then downtown, so I could see all the rooftops that he was trying to get. But I did, communications and messaging more for him. So, that's kind of it. With the K through 12 program, I worked with teachers all over LA County, and we were teaching the teachers to have their students use film and video to teach core curriculum. So the students could make videos about geography rather than writing a paper, that sort of thing, or in addition to it. So now from there, I got hired by Cal State University Northridge, pretty much based on that industry experience, and I've been there for more than 10 years now. And I was hired to take over a class called New Directions in Digital Media, which is everything AR, VR, XR, whatever, CGI, AI. I mean, that's all, whatever it is, the robotics, and the students kind of guide that. It changes every semester because they get to kind of brainstorm and come up with what projects they want to do. And then I got hired to teach also Media and Society, which is almost more criticism, philosophy, political theories to some extent, diffusion of innovation, how a product makes it to market, uses and gratifications. These are, well-known theories, and uses and gratification, why we use media, why we need it, why do we consume it, why do we want to create with it. So I enjoy that. I'm teaching both of those classes this semester, and then I've also taught narrative storytelling, which is kind of like the guts underneath screenwriting. It isn't fully screenwriting, but a lot of it was screenwriting for University of Nebraska. And I did intro class, like intro to digital filmmaking at CSUN and a few other places. And here I am, still exhaustedly kicking away the first couple of weeks with the fire as I evacuated for a while and I came back. And now I'm deciding whether or not I want to chicken out on this Thursday and not drive out to see some because they're predicting worse rain than last week. So I held last Thursday's class on Zoom because I was expecting it, and then it wasn't very much. I felt like a total wuss. But I don't know. I'd rather be a living wuss with an undamaged car than
Yeah, rains were
so
crazy.
yeah, yeah, I know. It's been very unpredictable and kind of, it's like following the administration in DC. It's kind of spinning every minute. So
Wow.
now you know about me. So I teach, it's part-time teaching still, although the way I do it is more than full-time. I haven't quite figured out how to do less. Um, I mean, and I have streamlined it. I'm more efficient than ever, but it's still, there just seems to be so much. My topics cover so much. That's part of it. I can't, go through it all. So that's it for me.
Well, and Anna Marie, one more thing is your extension beyond your teaching and your mentorship, but what you've done to help Dakar and bringing some of your prize students to us. Can you explain a little bit about how you select those people to work with people like me, and what would you believe the outcome could be if we were getting this better, if we were really getting this really refined?
Well, it's hard for me to select them at the beginning of a semester because I don't know them. So what I've done with you is it's when I can see who's really a good student, who's attentive, who's showing up, who writes me 2 days ahead or at least early that morning, the day before they say they're going to be absent, as opposed to one who'll write back 3 or 4 days later and say, "Oh, sorry, I was going to be in class, but something happened." Obviously, if you have a car crash, you get really sick, you can't do that. But they need to show me that they're going to exhibit some attempt at professionalism and being responsible, and then they've got to be interested in it. And I do target, definitely because of what Dakar does, is students of color. Um, but it doesn't always have to be. I think there were times where I've had a couple that were not, and I asked Kevin, "Is it okay if just a plain old white guy wants to work with you?" And he's like, "Yeah, why not? As long as they're going to be slaves, yeah." So,
Wow.
I think I just am a strong believer in diversity. I don't care what they're going to do in Washington now. I always have been. I've done it in my life with my friends, my son-in-law. I mean, our whole life has been imbued with that, and my work and my students. I love Northridge is actually the most diverse university in California, not just the state system, CSU, but I believe out of all the UC systems as well. And by diverse, then it doesn't mean just that there's a lot of people are brown and tan as well as white. It's because they've got Armenians and they've got Chinese, and they've got Asian, and just like it's incredibly diverse. So
Yeah, I really like it, and I've had a couple of my close friends graduate.
yeah, and they enjoyed it.
Yeah, CSUN is really cool. I got it. I would go to a lot of the CSUN events. They would just invite me out. It was just really fun to just see that environment because yeah, CSUN's like really really cool. It's just like
It
so
is.
that way, and there's just so many people of different walks of life.
Actually, Robert Townsend's going to be there again. I don't know if it's this week or next week. Diana
Hmm.
Winter, the one who I inherited the media and society course from her. I was astounded. She is this incredibly uh, well-spoken. I mean, that's published author. She's Yale educated, African American woman. She's just incredible. And she's stricter than I am. I play a little looser with my class with what I inherited, but I was impressed that she had suggested me, and part of it was because I was then working, and I've since completed my master's in media psychology. So I started teaching with only a bachelor's degree, but I kept on going towards the master's. And when I did get a contract to keep on teaching, they said in no uncertain terms, "You better damn well have that degree if you want to get this renewed." So I did.
Right. Right. And just before Wykin kind of connects to your energy, can you tell us a little bit about this recent news about the CSUs adopting AI for all of its pedagogy? What do you know, or what can you tell us about that?
I'm sorry, rephrase that question again. I just
Well,
had to stave off a
I'm
call.
yeah. So CSUs apparently the chancellor's office put out a note that all the CSUs, all 23, are going to be basically utilizing AI. Open AI, I think was the
Oh yeah,
relationship.
yes,
Yeah.
I know. And that only came out about 2 days ago. And honestly, I've
Hmm.
been so drowning in trying to get my courses going and started that I haven't been able to dig in. But I'm also part of a funded program, a research pilot program on using AI for teaching innovation. And I'm a little behind in that too. I mean, I got in that. We were starting right when I evacuated for the fires. And so everything I was trying to do was you know off put time wise. So anyway, that I did give up some, looked up some rubrics, and we're combined. There's about 8 of us in that program from different disciplines. There's a physics professor, computer science, education. There are different areas, and I'm one from cinema TV. So that goes. I have to present something. I have to do some experimenting with my assignments, and then produce the results of that in a presentation, a slideshow, with the other for the whole school, and maybe even
Wow.
for the whole system. So
Hmm.
I'm a little daunted by that, and I'm going. I decided, I think, in talking to them, I'm going to use only one of my assignments, the one that deals with copyright research and and negotiation. So they research different famous copyright cases, and then I pick which ones I like from that, and kind of blend who's who in the class, or their regular groups if I can. They have semester-long group projects, and this is like an exercise within that. So I'll have them. It could be Nike versus Adidas or something like that. You generally test, that's because of logos and graphics, and sports is entertainment as well. So it has to be the entertainment media oriented, though, not just any copyright case. So it tends to be more, like blurred lines, that kind of stuff. So, and then I'll pick them, and some will be very new cases that I didn't know about that they find, or some are classics like blurred lines. Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby. They're fun. We have a lot of fun. They have to argue. They have to take on the roles of being the defendants, or the respondents and the accusers, um, and then argue it out in class. Take on those roles, and argue it out. Summarize, intro what the case is about. Argue for one side or the other, even if they might, like, nobody wanted to be Vanilla Ice in that one. Somebody had to do it and take on that point of view. So that's what they do, is to see the other side, to understand the thinking, the strategy, the business of what that other side is. And it's
Wow.
it's fun. They end up screaming and ranting over the PETA one was an incredible one, where they were trying to argue that uh, a photographer was taking photographs of a gorilla in the wilds in, I think, a South American country, and then published them. And PETA, the animal rights advocacy group, went after him and said, "Uh-huh, you don't own that. The monkey took pictures. It's yours. You can't publish it. You can't make money off of it." And his camera, his remote, he had the camera out, the remote. The monkey learned how to use his camera and took selfies. So he published them, and it's a great case. And students were going wild over one side or the other.
Wow.
That's
That's
an interesting case.
well, what happened? What
What
was
did
the
Yeah.
in the final analysis, what happened? Who
Oh, I
won
think
the case?
the photographer, I believe, I think he settled or something and didn't want to go, gave some money to PETA. But I have to remember, I can't remember exactly. I think that's what it was. Another one similar to that was the John Cage Family Foundation sued uh, an 80s mid, B grade pop group called Matt Bat and the Planets, because they decided to title a track on their vinyl album an homage to John Cage, who did a famous piece in the 50s, experimental theater and audio, called 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence. And he had all the musicians get on stage and just sit there. Not doing, people paid for their tickets, they sat there. And he was very famous for doing that, because he was challenging the whole idea of audience and theater presentation. So But poor Matt Bat and the Planets, all he did was put an homage to John Cage on their record, and they got sued by. And Cage wasn't even alive anymore. He couldn't have said whether he wanted to allow them to use it or not. So in that case, they settled as well.
Wow, that's an interesting thing because we're I'm going to ask you one last thing before I turn it over to Wykin.
Yeah,
We're trying to figure out how to use all of the tools that are becoming well, just coming online for people to do AI or generative AI projects that have not only ethical but have long-ranging impact on something that we believe is historical, and which is really something called digital twinning and
yeah,
preserving and conserving information, artifacts, and just story that
right,
may be lost or never told. And we're doing that with potentially with Altadena
right.
through the NAACP, the new, newly elected official, president, young person, and we want to volunteer to help the folks who are artisans. Some of them are record producers, film, media, and some people just have heirlooms. And all of this stuff is still available for someone to curate, um, digitize and put into some format where it can become something that can tie to any other things that were put together but
Hmm.
never published, never stored in any place. But all of these things are to try and create the digital twin of a time, place, and civilization that may not ever be understood. And that's what we're going to look at
Right.
as a case study for digital
Well,
twinning
the
a
the
city.
problem for that, and like everything, so with AI is grabbing stuff from all over the web. When you're asking a question to whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or any of them, it's not like it's just generating self that information. It's pulling it from all places, and it doesn't necessarily cite the reference of where they got that. And then the conundrum with copyright is that an idea, you can't copyright ideas at all, but the expression of the idea. And so that's where things go into the courtrooms. And lawyers are the ones who make out on all of this stuff on every level. But if, I challenge, I can tell you about a dance performance I'm going to do as we're sitting at a coffee shop and describe it. You can go run with that idea. I can't sue you for it. If I write it down on the cocktail napkins or something, and yeah, I can say, oh, look, here it was. It's published. All you have to do is write it down. It has to be expressed in a tangible form. And that could be as simple as a cocktail napkin, or it can be a whole short video. But once it's out there, then that gets copied. But just an idea can't.
Well, we'll get back to that, but what we're looking at doing is something that we believe could be the use of all of the tools that could deploy on doing something for a citizen, a civilization
Hmm.
that I think through research we found that there's so much unpublished and unknown things that are scattered all over the place about why there was a settlement of
Right.
migration from the south east to this place called Altadena.
Ah,
Yeah, and and
right.
again, the timeline of things that happen are what gives us a really good understanding that a lot of people who have been descendants and really were kind of second, third generation people who received their homes from these folks don't know that information, don't know that history. And
Sure.
so again, and we're all going to be history 100 years from now. Want to be able to try to make sure that some of that stuff is contextualized. And so through the photographs and some other stories that have been kind of piecemeal together, I think it'd be a great idea to give the folks some understanding that we want to make sure that the digital representation of this
Right.
city is never forgotten, or maybe has never been known, except for now that we can give it some life that can be organic.
Right.
So
Just
that's
whatever you're doing, whatever you do with this, whether it's stuff that you're just collecting casually, is to make sure you're careful about who it belongs to or used to belong to, whether it's a family foundation or it's an individual, it's an artist, because you can get tripped up by that kind of stuff
yeah,
later.
we definitely need some help in understanding how to lay down the tracks and stay within those guardrails. And that's why we're trying to get some leadership from the NAACP as to who
Good
may
idea.
volunteer to be part of this repository. So,
Right.
but that's I divert because I wanted this really to be an introduction of two wildly intelligent, talented people from different generations.
Uh-huh.
So without further ado, I want to introduce this young man that I met at a Kevin Hart event that we did December 17th, where we're giving out laptops to folks that came from the county of Los Angeles. And he was there. And to his credit, he didn't get a laptop. He didn't ask for one, but he
Ah,
brought somebody who was a relative and has was on the spectrum, was neurodivergent, who we hope to bring into our program. But that's how I met him as he came to chaperone this young man, and since then I've been wildly impressed with how quickly he learns how to pivot to adult conversations and can fit nicely into adult rooms.
ah.
So that's one of the things that I'm really hoping that I get a chance to introduce you to the spirit and see if we can kind of help him really mature into the person that I think he's already going to be, but just give him a lot more insight as to what that could be in this new and very challenging world and political climate that we're in right now, because he's definitely wants to be interested in being a public servant at some point. So without further ado, Wykin, if you can introduce yourself.
Thank you for that introduction, Kevin. My name is Wykin Harris. I'm a mentee of Kevin Clark, a mentor with the Dakar Foundation. I'm also a political strategist, grant acquisitionist, specializing in socioeconomic and municipal sectors. I'm also a creative director and teacher at the Solo Foundation, the largest tech and entrepreneurship center in LA. We serve disinvested and underserved communities through my work as a creative agency teacher. I help young people become full-fledged creative entrepreneurs, equipping them with the skills and mindset to thrive in today's industry. So basically, my day to day looks like helping my community. I've dedicated the last 2 years of my life to the nonprofit sector. Over those like 2 years, when I first started my career, was in the media sector, and I started off as a creative director for Foot Action, and I used those skills and talents that I developed over the last 7 years to really just amplify and advocate for my community via different events, production, media productions, and just utilizing content to tell a story that really advocates for people. And through that entire time, community has been something that really has made me feel like I have a higher purpose. And fortunately enough, I was able to meet Kevin, and we've been on this just triumphant kind of just march of just trying. Oh, sorry, no worries. This triumphant march of just trying to advocate for people, figure out how do we help people, and what is the best step forward. I'm in a meeting right now. I'm in a meeting right now. Thank you. Um, so yeah, so for me, it's just about honestly just understanding what I should be doing as a young person to really have the knowledge and foresight to speak on certain things that I feel like a lot of people my age aren't allowed to have access to, especially when it comes to just being a young person of color. Like it's just hard to get into these rooms sometimes. So that's why I'm very grateful to have Kevin in my life, because not only is he a phenomenal mentor, but the rooms that I've been allowed access to a lot have shown me that realistically, the way that we make change is by taking over these seats of power and really just advocating for people. Because if we don't hold ourselves to those standards and say, hey, we should take the mantle, somebody else is going to take it who really doesn't need it. And for me, it's just about understanding how to be the best person I could be possibly. So that way I can just advocate for my community and the people who look like me on a very ground level. Like I don't want to have any ego behind anything, the things that I do. I want to just do it because I know what's right, and I know that the right thing should be done every time.
Right. And I'm going to fill in a few things that I want to highlight about him. He's got some real interesting
Fine.
and very mature outlook on things because he's had to. He lost his father at a very early age,
Mm,
and he's also got kind of a dual understanding of different uh, ethnic culture struggles to try and be able to balance both of those. And I want him to, kind of tell a little bit of what he's trying to do to cover those areas for Black and Brown people, but also again to really honor his father. So if you can, just tell a little bit about that is your part of your story that I found very compelling.
Yeah, so when I was 19, I lost my dad, and my father was a fire captain for over 20 plus years. He was a public servant as well, first responder, just absolute amazing family man and just pillar of the community. And when he passed away, it was just so tragic and sudden. And I was devastated at 19. I had lost my self-worth. I at the time was, like modeling, and I thought, oh my God, like I was like, this is it. This is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. I found it, I made it big. And then that happened and it completely destroyed me. And I was like, wow, like what do I do from here? Like I at the time I didn't love myself enough to even continue down that road. And when I found photography, it was such a therapeutic thing and it became like one of my like truest life passions. So for me, that was just a powerful outlet. My skills became something that not only nourished my soul, but became a financial opportunity and a blessing. I then used that skill and drive to start my own creative agency and then began not only teaching and training my friends, but then hiring them for certain projects and collective work. So for me now, 7 years later, what
mm,
I want to do is like through the Harris Foundation is really set up economic opportunities where I feel like people who are underlooked, underinvested, and just need help. So one of the things I've considered was the Next Step program, where I want to actually create a full-fledged program for people on the spectrum where we give them employment, housing, and economic opportunities to really like invest into themselves. And also, oh no, it's not. It's assisted living, so that way they can seek independent living as well. Because I feel like that community, especially with my cousin Andrew, is underserved sometimes. And for me, like I feel like gratefully that my family at least has the compassion to treat Andrew with respect. And I feel like some people, unfortunately, don't have that same compassion to relatives and their family. And it's like those people I want to help because I understand what it's like to not have somebody in your corner and not have people helping you. So now that I have the mindset and the wherewithal to understand so many different people's plights and so many different struggles and things that affect us all, like white people, black people, whoever, like we share. To me personally, as I've gotten older, it's just a human experience. It's just something that we all can attribute our life experience to. And what really matters at the end of the day for me, my legacy and honoring my father is who am I helping and why? You know what I mean? My why is really family, community, and just higher purpose. Like I don't want to for me, like I used to go on tour with people. I've been blessed and privileged with my skill set to be in some very cool opportunities and do some very cool things. But the
mm.
thing that matters the most to me now, and the thing I'm the most proud of, is that I get to wake up every day and help my community. And
Right.
that to me is my biggest thing.
And Wykin, can you share with Anna Marie what happened to your father?
Yeah, so he was coming, so he just proposed to his fiance in Las Vegas. He was coming back on the freeway from like Las Vegas, and I think they were leaving like Barstow, and there was a car accident. So my dad is a first responder, but overall he's just a good human being. Hopped out the car to assess the situation, started saving people out of the car. There was like one of the cars flipped over, so he's getting people out of the car. And unfortunately, in doing so, there was a drunk driver speeding down the emergency lane and unfortunately made full on contact with my father. There was a veteran next to him who was helping him get people out of the car. He pushed him out the way, took the full brunt. And 2 days later, I found out. And it was crazy because I was on vacation and it was like we went to the beach and we were like, oh, we're gonna do like a beach day, and it was the cloudiest day ever, but it was so scenic and beautiful. and it
Mm.
was so eerie. But like I just kept telling myself like it was a beautiful day for tragedy over
Mm,
and over again in my head.
I
And
know.
then
I've also noticed the beauty that sometimes seems to be there, like after an earthquake.
yeah,
The stillness and it's gorgeous. Yeah,
it's serene. It's serene in the most like it's just a uncanny sereneness. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
I do.
You just feel this presence. And I ended up naming the poem that I read at my dad's funeral A Beautiful Day for Tragedy.
Mm,
And you know that to me the biggest thing for me and the lesson I learned with that was, you know, especially at a young age, it was like one, my heroes are not immortal,
mm,
right? Two, you know, this was either going to be something that broke me or made me a better person.
mm.
And I had to choose to become a better person and like really drag myself for help because this was something that like at 19 I had like nobody to turn to and this was all just internalized. And like I didn't have enough money to go to a therapist. Like I just had to figure it out. And some days even now I'm still
I don't know
figuring
if
it
they
out.
had victim assistance services then because I had, I'm not sure if Kevin told you, but very similar tragedy with my husband. But also, I lost my mother when I was 14 and bottom of the stairs one morning. She was in a coma. And being the female in the family, I was expected to then take care of all the kids, and I was told I was lucky to be able to continue high school. And that went on. There's something I've never really gotten over. We don't know really what happened. My father, claimed to be Catholic and not want an autopsy done, and but he did keep me and my brother and sister together when family members wanted to separate us and have different people take care of us. So he did that, and then went through all of that, worked my way through school, paid for my school, that and a lot of loans, gotta say, but and some scholarship money, which I got later. And then in 2020, it'll be 5 years in May, believe it, Kevin. My husband was hit by a 23-year-old racing in our neighborhood in downtown Los Angeles in the Arts District with a 300K McLaren, just came out of his lofty loft, speeding at 70 miles an hour. Somebody was pulling out near the architecture school where he was a student, and he got pissed off and he revved his engine to swerve around him and hit my husband where he was walking on a break between clients. He was a therapist, actually. He's in between clients, and
Oh my
10
God.
minutes, he was gone. So now heard about it through next door, a little social media while I was in the loft working, waiting for him to come back. He'd put out leftovers for lunch. And it was pandemic, of course, it just started. And next thing I knew, I'm scratching my head saying, he's late, what's going on? And there were cops banging on my door. And so my daughter was at Stanford at the time, and she drove down with her now husband. And my son was in Massachusetts, and he had to wait and go through extra COVID testing before he could even leave and get on a flight to be home. But it was yeah, it's insane. Right when you think that you got through it, to
Yeah.
have my sister was in court with us because we had to go through years and years, and Kevin was helpful in advising me on some of that, of a criminal case and then a civil case. And my sister flew in from the East Coast and she leaned forward and said, I can't believe you're going through this again. Although with my mother there was no accusations and no criminal or court cases, nothing like that. Just the tragedy and the loss at such a young age. It's very daunting. So I understand, yeah, what you're going through. And my father lost his mother when he was 19, so I never met her. Uh,
Yeah, same. My dad lost his dad when he was I believe he was 10.
wow, yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
then he had me at a young age. So it's crazy because like even for me, it's like understanding the family dynamic of having kids at a young age. Like me, I'm 26 now, no kids for a
yeah.
reason. You know what I mean? I'm trying to break the
I
generational
waited until I
cycle.
was more like 30. I think the 30 be
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting till I'm a millionaire and then I'll think about it. You know what I mean?
don't wait that long, just in
Let
case.
me, let me figure it out. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
Like,
You're
kids
gonna
are
have to
expensive
develop more of an
nowadays.
ego then if you want to do that.
right.
That's what I was gonna say before. Don't discount ego. It's not all just bad to say when I don't have an ego. We all do. And even the feeling that you get by doing something good is kind of giving yourself some strokes for that. I always
Yeah,
feel like do good stuff, know that you're getting something out of it, even if you're not getting the monetary value, that you are getting something that's motivational.
Right.
100%.
Right. And Anna Marie, one of the things that strikes me about him is being someone who wants to serve, wants to do something. It could be a public servant, could be a politician, it could be anything, but he
Yeah.
wants to jump in there and do something that perhaps there's no logic for. There's more passion, but also some strategy of what can he do to get better or get prepared for meeting this opportunity to fuse what he's going to be meeting in terms of people and opportunities with me and other people, with the ability to share that with people in his peer group. So he's from African American and Mexican American heritage, which is a very interesting thing to be able to have some insight as to what is the prevailing winds of change and things that he wants to see happen.
Hmm.
He was very, concerned about the present administration and what he's doing to, I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing a lot of stuff. And Wyken,
Roughshod. Yeah.
Wyken, Wyken, has been very interested in figuring out, well, what can I do as a person besides be upset, besides be, aware. And so we've been talking about being more activists and doing
Yeah.
something and getting more young people to think about, the idea of what does that look like?
Right.
So we were even talking about workforce and how workforce is going to allow people to really understand if they want that opportunity to be included or to be heard or seen and have a voice, they're going to have to sign up for the selective service. And we didn't even know that this was something that was possible. But
Hmm.
then, it's like, well, what is the selective service for a young person and why? And
Right.
how many young people that you're teaching now even understand that whole realm? And so
One of
once
the
the,
things that we have to understand is some balance between private endeavors, private business endeavors, and public policy and that sort of thing. Because, and where does your temperament and your experience fit in, and where are others? So some people, yes, they're going to be out in the streets raising hell and making trouble, but that may curtail them from making other kinds of inroads. And you give up something when you do that. And it's a great commitment, and it should be respected. But some others are better by staying the course and keeping on elevating kind of within. It's where you get trapped in between when you go inside, when you're working from the inside, to not get usurped by that and taken over. How do you maintain the truth of what needs to be there, your true north, so to speak? Because otherwise, the corporate world will make you play the corporate game and make you, therefore, put a lot of things aside to keep climbing and scratching your way to the top. And yet, in order to make inroads, you need people on the inside to do that, that will maintain their awareness of what has to happen on a larger social change. And that's always, it's a tricky little balancing game. And then there's those foot soldiers that are out there, holding picket signs and screaming outside Washington and other city halls and places, and they're needed too. I know that I did some of that when I was younger, but I'm not going to do it now. I figure if I thought I could hold people up and carry them, I would do that. But my greater worth is to know to get out of the way so that I don't, I'm not the one who needs help. Don't add to the burden. So if I can help, other ways that I can help, educating, talking, organizing, that sort of thing, writing postcards, I've done all of that, but I'm probably not going to see me with my Nordic York hiking poles and my dog with a picket sign.
right. So,
But I'll
Wyken,
the
anything you
others
want
to
to
do
chip in
that.
on that? Because again, what we're trying to do is to create some type of forum where he and some of his peers can introduce some of these things that, some people call adulting. It's not just workforce or career, but it's all the things that span how do you get to adulthood, independent living, and what do those things mean in 2025 and beyond? That,
Right.
so these are the
The
kind of things.
pendulum is trying to swing back. That's part of the problem. We were discussing that in my class this morning about that kind of push that's happening that we're seeing. Let's stuff that back in. Let's stuff all the gay people back in the closets. Let's get all the trans people out. We don't need that many black people in this business, do we? Let's that's
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
maybe,
starting to regress. It's
Contraction. It's
crazy.
yeah,
called, yeah, contraction.
absolutely.
Contraction. Let's get back to some simple way
But the
of doing it.
building of it was by, yeah, people making noise, pounding on the doors, let me in, the glass ceiling and everything else. But once a few got in, then people did learn, oh, these are people. Just like they can do jobs. They may do this job better than I can or their other counterpart can, but they don't know it until they see it and experience it.
Well, and
So,
and that's one of the things I
right.
want to introduce to both of you guys. So, have you heard of a platform called All Sides?
Yes, I have heard of it.
Yeah, so I'm signed up for it, and one of the things I want to introduce is a fair or as close to fair and balanced way of looking at news and media and social posts and publishings out there so that
Yeah.
can be discussed by people who want that kind of discord or discourse. And
Discourse. Yeah.
so that's kind of what it is that I think when I think about him putting on a show out there that has this way of taking the lens and saying, hey, let me still learn about other people's perspectives so that I can still learn what it is that I don't know.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know what's going to become of any experience, but I think that this is a situation whose time has come to allow young people to be challenged with all the things that maybe no one's really preparing them for. Because I know education and workforce is important, but what else is part of the formula of
Yeah.
taking their place as contributing citizens?
It's being able to shine with your skills and your talent. And that was the problem with it. When the doors were closed, you couldn't even show, this is what I can do, because you're already written off. But it's the rabble rousers and screamers that get help make, little cracks in space to crawl through and then show and reveal. I put a link in the chat, that's actually, this guy is a friend of mine, dear friend of mine. He called me by accident this morning. It was really great because I want to invite him to my class again. Johnny Simmons, he's a
Oh,
award-winning photographer, cinematographer. He made an independent film, When We Were Colored, with Felicia Rashad in it. He's now mostly concentrating on not just photography, but collage. And he just told me today that the Washington National Gallery in DC just bought 5 of his artworks. And one of them they're considering, a woman flew out to meet with him and see the collage piece herself in person because they're thinking of making it part of the permanent collection. So,
nice. Wow.
yeah,
Well,
he was lamenting though our industry. He said, film industry, it's broken. He said, I still have work, but I know it's hard, for students to break in and for others to break in because the studio system is breaking down. I said, well, that's kind of, for me, it never did work really. I wasn't quite acceptable enough. But it's also because my gravitational pull was towards indies and independence. And the whole idea of that, raising your own money and telling your own story. And I think we have more outlets, more tools and more outlets to do that and not have to maybe play that corporate game quite as much. I mean, you do if you got to raise the money. You can't get around it at all. But you don't have to do it quite as much as sucking up in a suit to people that, making 5 times what you're making. So, and then
wow.
raise the money you can. It's possible, but it is very hard work. And then the problem with that, the conundrum, is that you end up spending so much time raising the money and marketing to raise the money that it's like, whoa, where'd my film go? Where's my art? It seems so far off because you're drowning in all this other stuff. So that's another kind of a balance. Is yeah, being loud or like John Lewis, right? Get in the way. That's his famous quote. My friend of mine, a white woman, Irish background, Kathleen Dowd, it took her 15 years to make this film. There's another one that was made that showed on HBO and got more acclaim, but she did it. She put it away for a while. She got very discouraged, and she got hired as an AD on the Dr. Phil show, of all
Hmm.
places. And then when Obama was elected, she said, "Oh, now's the time to strike again." She went back to a lot of their funding sources, and she got the money, and she made the film. It's a
Wow.
distribution. Right, and John
Wow.
Lewis, 'cause I met him actually because of her, and his whole thing was get in the way. That's it.
Hmm.
Don't.
Well,
And he learned how to play the game too. He did it politically. I mean, he knew how to find that balance.
right. Well, one of the things I want to do is give you guys your time back because I wanted this to be more intro, but
Yeah,
I want him to in closing thoughts, Wykin,
Mhm.
anything that you've heard or anything you feel that you'd like to share with Anna Marie without me prompting or suggesting anything,
can you
because
put
she
your whole name in the chat too, so I know your name and not just Sunny?
Yes, yes. Sorry about that. It's my
That's okay.
nickname.
That's okay.
Here, let me type this in real quick.
I have a good friend whose name is Sunny, but she's a Sonia.
Oh, that's nice. My grandmother's name was Sonia.
Oh, really? With an IA?
No, it was Sonia. Sonyya.
YA. Okay, mine is SONJA because her father is West German. Her mother's Jamaican, the father's West German. But she and her brother are incredibly gorgeous.
wow, yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
So
in regards to what we
thank you.
discussed, yeah, I definitely would love to have further discussions on the media front of like what we can be doing as far as like an ad campaign or just like in the TV sense, like what can we be showcasing? How do we get this to like some type of blueprint where it's like adaptable and modular. So let's just say like whether it's me or whether it's like a Zoom call kind of thing, we can make it kind of like a modular thing. Because a lot of the programs that I've been watching that I do something very similar, like the Julabees, that kind of thing, where it's like 6v6. But this what I really wanted to do is be a one-on-one with me as like a moderator in the middle, and then I would be the open channel for just the general public to just ask questions to two people on different sides of the fence. You know what I mean? And that
I
way,
do. I
if,
do.
and then that way, it's not about making, it's not about them proving who's right. It's about leaving it up to the audience to decide how do you feel about the information that's here. We're not here to tell you who's wrong, who's right. We're here to have an open and
Right.
safe conversation and let
Right.
you be an adult and figure out how this makes you feel. How does this information affect you? And that way, people can have an open. So one of the things I was thinking about is live streaming it and allowing people to have open format discussions in the chat. So that way it's like, hey, if there is a good conversation and people are really articulating something of importance, me as a moderator, I would have somebody in my ear and he say, hey, so and so made this great point. You should bring it up and see what they say.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So
I have
that's
my
really
class
where my headset
assistants
is.
do that for me. But one thing that I like in formatting some that I've seen is to have a separate Q questions chat.
Yeah.
And then another one that's sort of for comments, and that way you can address the questions are there because some people are just going to say, "Hey, cool dude," or maybe they
Yeah.
take. You don't want to tell just go there, but to make them really think about formulating questions, lay it out that way, and then you toggle through. It's always good to have an assistant with that, and to have structure. You brought up wanting to have something, a familiar structure, because if people are going to come back to it and back to it, then they kind of got to know what it's going to look like, or even, oh, I know they're going to do all this stuff intros at the beginning. I'm going to come in 5 minutes later or something, or it always falls apart towards the end. I'm scheduling this, and our attention span is like this now, and we've got such a bombardment. So making it really digestible, really structured, allowing for some breath and for the scope of whatever the content is to be laid out, be presented. Too structured, then it's going to become really boring and formulaic. But somewhere,
mhm.
formula is going to help somewhere within that. Creative backgrounds and stuff. If you got about 2 minutes, I could show you something.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Share the screen here.
Well, if I can grab it real quick, I think I can. It's still there. Um,
Do you have screen sharing? What? I thought I'd give it to you. Wait a minute.
uh, maybe. I don't know. Right now, I'm just searching through my history here for it.
Right. And while you're looking for that, so there's a couple of calendar things that we're going to try and invite you to. I mean, obviously you're super busy, but we're looking to try and kick off something that will create some potential formatting structured, but introing it as a way to intro our friends, our supporters. And so we have a room on the 19th, that's a Wednesday, that's connecting to career placement, connects to Kevin Hart, connects to a lot of things that are going to help people understand um, what structure is out there for them to get resources, whether it be stipends or wraparound services to get into um, career placement. So we're going to do something on the 19th. We're doing something on the 22nd at Sony, which is more production. We're going to try to do something at the end of February 28th for Black History Month. And then we're going to try and bring us all back together to Heartbeat to try and introduce the formation of a cohort that
Uh-huh.
take into bringing some field trips and some other things through Manir. So we've got a lot of stuff going on, and we're still looking for the right 30 people to bring in uh,
Right.
to that. But at the end of the day, we're still looking for people
And
like you
let's
guys.
say you want these to be mostly like high school seniors or
I think it's just people with talent, people who just have the fire, who have the heart.
find it a little bit though because it's
Yeah, and it's difficult really to create a collaboration of people when they have so much generational difference. But the one thing I know is that we're looking for people who could go to work. So, if it's a high school person, we need parental permission. They're probably not going to be the key person to
I
be
would
part of the
say
cohort.
I would say as far as age range, 18 to 24, and people who just have a passion. I would say right now our focus are people with passion for the arts and just media and entertainment, because those are the most applicable skill sets that we have right now. Whether it's like learning how to use a camera, learning how to be a gaffer, director of photography. There's multiple practices and disciplines when it comes to just being on set in general.
mhm,
Those are all things that we can train for as well. So they don't even need to
very
necessarily be experts. They just have to be passionate enough to pursue this long enough for us to turn them into these creative professionals.
and develop the skills. So
Exactly.
and it's sort of the why bother and what are the pros of what are they going after that is a really important part of that. So people that want the skill sets just because I'm going to get a job, that's you know it's going to take them that far in a niche. But some who understand they want to communicate and communicate on a larger level. I'm going to show this just real quick, just a little bit of it. This was a group project, and they were doing a VR chat. And so what they did was they set up this library, like a interview room with a table. One student, I can't believe it looks like he's wearing a white hood. I didn't notice that before, but he's the interviewer. So they had a set of questions, and they interviewed avatars in different chat rooms to find out what they liked about being an avatar and how they were growing or learning as a person. So I'll play just a little bit of it. But to me, this is like a fun way to
Hello,
approach
Nick.
that.
Hey, I appreciate you coming out today. I just got some questions that I want to ask. Should be simple, should be sweet. You, sounds good. Cool thing. All right. So, first question. Who are you and what do you do in VR?
Uh, well, my tag is Nick AO.
Howdy, I am Joel. We'll leave it at there for now.
I'm Wolfie. Usually people call me Wolfie. I go by Wolfix though mostly.
I'm Sophie.
Hello, my name's Farrellin. Good man. Yeah.
Cool. What's your social security number?
Well, I got somewhere. My name's Mashi. In VR, mainly, I am a active role player.
I guess I could be considered a lot of things. I'm a gamer first and foremost. I'm a friend, a role player, just someone looking to meet other people and have a good time, really.
I personally use VR to socialize with friends, meet new people, play games with others, socialize. Well, I already said socialize. Party occasionally, and I personally use it the most to as an avenue for role play.
Particularly in VR, I like to do D&D, and I make models for people. So if I'm online, I'm either like testing models or just hanging out with people after we do D&D sessions together.
So I'll stop that there. But you can see it was kind of fun. He really started getting into each of them talked about their self-expression, and yet did it in the environment where they were creating these roles. So what was nice that he set it up, and those questions were directed at all of them, and then sort of cut to bed. It's not that different from regular television programming interviews from
Yeah.
film. I did a lot of things. I had my set of questions, and then when I had enough of a free hand, I could veer and say, I'm going to talk to this one about a little bit more because they have something more to bring to the table on that. But I could still, when you get into the editing room, to have those sections organized, and with things like the Avid type editing in Premiere, you can set up bins and mix and match between them. Because if you're going to do it and get enough reach with it, then you have to find an efficiency to your production that still allows some creativity to come through.
One of the things that I thought about right now watching that video is, have you ever seen like the documentary films that they kind, or not, the kind of like lead up to a fight with the fighters, and they're like, hey, we're with Mike Tyson in his home and this is where he grew up. What if we did that for politicians, and then it leads up, and then this like it's like a maybe like a 3-minute mini doc, right, for both of them. It kind of like goes into like their background, where they're from, and then or maybe like a 5 minutes, so it's like 10 minutes of just documentary footage, but it would essentially be like, hey, this is where I grew up, this is why I believe what I believe, this is the people who kind of like affected me and made me feel this way, this is who, like, so that way leading up to the discussion, you get a sense of who these people are. These aren't just like two random people you've never met before.
Right,
These
you want to know that background.
Yeah, so because then if one of them is completely, let's for lack of a better words, bonkers, you're like, I get it. I see where you grew up, and I see how your background could have turned you into this
You don't think
absolute
about
mess.
ye, are you?
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where it's like people are gonna believe, like, especially like my biggest thing, especially now, it's like there's Republicans and then there's Trump supporters, right? There's a distinction because Trump supporters are like,
Right.
you can tell them, Trump could say, hey, the sky is purple, and they're like, my president said the sky is purple, the sky is purple, and it's like you can't get through these people. So I'm interested in just hearing their beliefs and their background, and like, how did you get indoctrinated into these beliefs?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Or
what
what's
did
the
you
archetype of a
Realize that we're all
person?
indoctrinated in some beliefs too. That's up there with that, remembering. I think the best thing, the truest, most honest thing you can do is to recognize that in your work too, and lay it out there too. Don't pretend you come from some. I mean, there's no such thing as totally unbiased, in my opinion. There's
Yeah.
always a POV. You turn on a camera, pick up a pencil in your hand. You're coming to it from some POV. So state that, and then get out of the way, or make that be all of it and what it's about. But just I never trust the people who say, "Oh, this is completely unbiased. We're just neutral." We're
Yeah, no, nobody's unbiased.
no. So,
Wow.
yeah, that's a good endeavor. And I think if you have, don't forget the fun that's in it. Everybody gets tired. And even serious subjects can have a little bit of fun and colorfulness and humor, and just, balance it. You don't want too much of that. But I think it's a good idea to have some of that. So think about that's what you all want to do, is think about what you want to sit through too. Look, your own perspective. What are you going to stay with? And I once had to teach a bunch of high school students. It was a CREC city resource education council in Hartford, and went to the high schools, and the high school kids were all being placed in these different jobs, even a trout fishery just outside of the city. And my job was to document this whole program, but I was given one of those students to work with me, or two, and that was his job, was to be with me to document the rest of the program. And when we were sitting down about how they were going to make some films about this, I showed them some public service announcements, and they were just like, and I asked them, and I said, so what's wrong with this? I just showed them heavy-handed narration, pounding over the head, and they're looking, oh, nothing's wrong. I said, okay, you want to watch it again? Then they start talking about why they didn't want to watch it again.
Well, and not to completely bastardize this, but I want to have this programming out there, because programming for young students, learners, by young student learners, there is a there are people who need this kind of energy, not just as a focus group, but
Yeah,
how these people are going to become something that they can study and learn how to relate to them better.
right.
It could be brands, it could be cause related marketing, but I have some advertising agencies who want to meet these people. And that's one of that. I have an advertising agency who's just stumped, and they just don't know how to reach Generation Z and Alpha.
Well, we got to get to them before the new administration says, okay, you don't have to do this anymore. That's the problem. No, seriously. There's already some. I read an article this morning saying, oh, good. Some of these companies, and Google is one of them actually. Great. We don't have to do DEI now because Trump says we don't have to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So,
and
yeah,
in all fairness, I mean, some of these corporations they don't care about anything else other than the bottom line of their brands or their clients.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, I would like to have something that shows up on streaming platforms that
yeah.
allows,
Well,
yeah, and that allows us to get through without any editorial oversight. And that's what I've built. I've actually invested in that.
well, that's there. So then the audience for those streaming platforms, that's a big conundrum, really, because they're all over the place. So who
Yeah,
had
yeah.
the real audience for this when there's so much just out there? At least if you were getting something on PBS, you knew there was a PBS
Right,
audience.
right. Well, and here's the thing: is
Sorry.
I'm going to try and pick off as many educational institutions and daisy chain them together, like LAUSD, LA Community Colleges, potentially CSUs, and see if they will at least connect through what we're looking to build the ramp on ramp for being able to understand what workforce or what career platforms or whatever it's going to be available for you once you get out of academia. Because that's really what I'm about. How did people get paid? How did people, become more aware of the new? That's what it is that we're going to be really focusing on. I mean, at least one of the channels is going to be on what can we do to get the job hires and the job seekers in the same room.
Right.
Kevin Hart, and that's what I'm hoping, what I'm
That's
going to offer up, and see if people want to talk to the people who can give them real square business about what are they looking for, and how many are they going to hire, and what's the pay scale, and all other questions that are going to be real smoke for people to say, gee whiz, I've never heard that kind of inside baseball as to what I can be doing to decide if I want to work for you or not, whether or
yeah.
not there is something that's even on the north, as you say, the North Star for everybody has to be, well, what is a North Star?
Right.
And because some people I think are really going to have to make some tough decisions. Do I ever, as you said, do I want to go private or public? Do I care about selective service? I mean,
No,
people.
it's often a matter, it's a mix too, because there were times where I got hired because the nonprofit really appreciated that I had this actual commercial background. So, oh, she's going to be a little more serious. She's going to bring these skills. And it's true to some extent, but then there were other times where, um, at ABC, they loved that I had worked for AFI before because it had such a classy, you know,
Well, you
cachet.
you
It's
just nailed
stuffy. I
it.
used to call it stuffy. It had a
Right.
stuffy cachet.
Well, I don't think it's a bad thing. Everybody says focus, focus, focus. I don't think it's a bad thing for people to be a Swiss Army knife anymore.
No,
Yeah. So I think if you have all sides and you're exposed to it, then you can make some decisions about, what things I want to put in my back pocket versus my front pocket. Whoops. I got excited there. But yeah, but
but
it's all the
it's a
things that
good
I
job, though.
people to that I never got exposed to until it was too late. So, any questions, suggestions, or comments? Because I recorded this, but I'm gonna share it with the rest of his peers.
I think the thing to go from here is that Sonny need to maybe do an outline of what you want to do and
Yeah.
start with that, just paper or even maybe storyboard too, but an outline and what topics you want to cover, who the audience is, where that audience might be found, and then a structure, like how long and what would those pieces be like.
Okay. Well, we're recording this
Okay.
Wykin,
So I'm just
a
gonna write
challenge.
that down. But yeah, I remembered your recording.
Yeah, that's what you have to come up with, and with her time and energy permitting, she may look at it and say, hey, it looks like this or it looks like that, and give you at least an informed, a concerned, critique of what it looks like. So we have to use, our resources like this to really figure out what we can do to hone our craft. So, that's one of the reasons why I have her there, is to help us so that we don't look like complete,
They
experimental.
start small because you have too much, it's easy to get overwhelmed. But if you start, well, now one piece is that's a one-off then. So if you're thinking about doing it in multiples, then you got to look at what that structure is going to be
Yeah.
and what's changed within it, and at least do a sampling of what that is. And and when you start laying it down, even on paper or shooting a little bit and editing it together, it'll start to reveal itself, I think, a lot.
Yeah, because I definitely want to consider that scope of work and what exactly that looks like. What is the production
Uh-huh.
entail? Who do I need a part of that team? But yeah, I think I'm. Thank you so much for hopping on the call with us because, like, honestly, like your insight and your background is very inspiring and just allows me to really think about how we should be articulating this information, who we should be bringing on, what does that really look like for a lot of the stuff that we're doing now, and realistically, it's just about providing information to the youth in a very um, direct way, but not in too like like you were saying, not too over the head with the information. You know what I mean? We want it to be digestible and relatable.
Right.
So yeah, that's
And
definitely something I'll formulate within that plan.
the things that we can do now that you couldn't do with traditional media is ancillary. So maybe there's one small piece that's well edited and put together, but it links to solid separate clips that are more informative,
Mhm.
or as well as documents, as well as also an audio file, so that kind of thing. So the one piece that's there that's succinct, is in my battery. You can always make sure that it's layered nicely so that people know they can go get more information quickly. It's intuitive. You can link to this and that and find out a little bit more. The longer interview or something else, for more information, background, resource materials, but keep the little part that they engage with first kind of tight.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I'm
Well, I'm
gonna
gonna give.
ready for
I'm gonna.
tomorrow.
Right. So, my favorite Zoom line. I'm gonna give everybody their time back, and so we can, again, live to see another day. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Here,
though. I
here.
appreciate you so much for hopping on the phone with us. Thank you.
I know. I hope we get to meet IRL sometime.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Okay.
IRL. There you
Hey,
go.
let me
Okay.
know. I'll stop by CSUN anytime.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm up there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's those are unfortunately the
Well,
same days that I teach as well too. I teach
but
on
but
Tuesdays and
but
Thursdays.
Right.
you teach in
Wait,
the
which
evening
school are
though.
you at again? Put that in the chat so I
Oh,
don't.
yeah. I put it in
Yeah,
there
yeah.
at the
You did.
beginning,
Oh, you
but
did. Okay.
I'll send you more information on what they're doing. They have a cool team tech center that he's teaching in. It's 4 to 8, right? It's Sola. It's 4 to 8 on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
4:30 to 6:30.
Oh,
Right.
I'm
And this,
opposite. I'm 9 to 11:30, 12 o'clock at season.
Oh, perfect,
yeah.
perfect.
So right,
Come in for
and
class.
just a little context, the organization that is the for-profit, they're probably the largest real estate developers of affordable housing in Los Angeles County.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they created the nonprofit and created a teen tech center that has Riot Games and about 20 other corporate sponsors. So it's very, very robust for all the kids who want to learn how to tinker and do all the things that they can do. But what he's really has as a potential hook here is to talk to people who are developers and investors. And the one thing that we all know is on the really top list of the hierarchy of needs is housing, safety, and trying to figure out if there's any way they could ever create some type of dormitory setup for
Mm.
people who are in workforce so that
Mm.
they can actually, really be able to understand how to get to a 1 year commitment to an opportunity by living in some housing that's safe in LA County.
Well, our early manufacturing industries and businesses were set up like that. We call them factory towns. And those factory beneficiary, businesses would set up, but in order to attract people to come there and work, they would help supply low-cost housing for them, tract houses. A lot of them were built that way. And the little
Wow.
bungalows, they were
Yeah.
part of companies. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially like
Instead of
mine.
welfare, workfare,
Yeah,
Section 8, we're trying to think of some other way to incentivize those developers to set aside, with tax incentives, ways for people to have some housing that are really going to be able to convert that opportunity with a year and 2 year into folks who could be paying, top, rental on the same unit that you gave them a chance to become, to grow into themselves. I
mm,
mean, but those are the kind of things that we're thinking about is how do we get to the real issue of housing in LA County? The toughest place, the toughest thing that everybody's going to face is where are we going to live once we
yeah,
get to the other side of academia? I
yeah.
mean, in the workforce. So
That's a lifelong quest. I can
yeah,
just,
too big right now to think about at
yeah,
7:30 or 7:15 on a
yeah,
Tuesday or a
yeah.
Monday, whatever day this is.
With that, I better go because
Get
I
out,
don't want to be up all
get
night and I got to drive.
get out of here. Okay, we'll
I
talk.
appreciate you, Kevin. Thank you, Ann. Thank you for the conversation. I
Bye.
appreciate you guys.
Bye.
Okay,
Okay.
now. All right, bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye bye.